On October 8, 2018, Hurricane Michael underwent a 48-hour rapid intensification period where it went from a Category 1 hurricane to a Category 4 hurricane. By landfall on October 10, 2018 at 12:30 p.m. Central Time, Hurricane Michael was an unprecedented for the region Category 5 hurricane, making landfall near Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida. Hurricane Michael was the strongest hurricane in recorded history to make landfall on the Florida Panhandle. Landing with sustained winds of 161 miles per hour and a minimum pressure of 919 millibars, the storm was the fourth most powerful hurricane to hit the United States, spreading devastation far inland through many counties in northwestern Florida, from Bay County, Gulf County, Calhoun County, even through Jackson County and Leon County, where the state capital is located. Hurricane Michael was unique in that it maintained its major hurricane status all the way through the Florida-Georgia state line. As it entered Seminole County, Georgia, it was still a strong Category 3 hurricane. Across northwestern Florida and into the state of Georgia, Hurricane Michael was responsible for $25 billion in damages. These are the 31 voices of Hurricane Michael, representing the many unique experiences and perspectives of the community members who endured the storm and its impacts. Voices of hope, empathy, pain, lessons learned, grit, determination, and extensive insight into one of the most catastrophic hurricane seasons the Florida Panhandle has ever encountered.
I'm meteorologist Melissa Thomas, and allow me to introduce you to the voices of Hurricane Michael's voice.
Okay, Panama City was indeed home. I was born here in 1952 in Lisenby Hospital. Lisenby Hospital is now Lisenby Retirement Home. So I don't know if I'm going to go back out through Lisenby Hospital.
We moved here, my husband and I and our two girls, 2 years prior to Hurricane Michael.
I've lived here since 1996 with my wife, and we bought our first house here.
We are military. We're Air Force. My husband's been serving for almost 18 years. So we moved to Panama City in March of last year.
I came to visit a girlfriend that lives in Panama City Beach about 23 years ago.
23 years.
And she took me to a little place called Hunt's Oyster Bar.
Hunt's?
Down on Beck Avenue. And I said, I'm going to have a shop down here one day, because I just fell in love with St. Andrews. It's such a charming little fishing village, and it has just so much natural beauty with being right on the water, and the community was very artful.
I actually, at the time, was living over in Callaway at a little apartment complex.
Well, Blountstown has always been a very small town where everyone knows everyone, so it was, and it's still that way to this day. It was just like one big dream under the trees that just never seemed to end.
My husband and I retired here in Mexico Beach a year and 2 months before the storm.
We were both volunteers on the fire department. I was the victim advocate, and he was city clerk for the city of Mexico Beach.
I knew we were due. We haven't had a big one hit in a long time since Opal, and I knew we were due because we had a very active hurricane season last year.
Well, the interesting thing is on Friday the 5th, it was still not developed. It had not yet become a depression, but it was certainly collecting, and models were looking very strong that it was going to more deeply develop. And the Hurricane Center was upping their percentages for development from 30 and 40 and 80%. And so on Friday, I left work that evening at WMBB in conversation on the air going, whatever happens, take the weekend, the weather was going to be perfect, to get everything ready. And if you've got to leave, do it now when the roads are clear, when there's gas at the gas stations, when there's cash in the ATMs. Use the weekend to do that. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the storm had not yet formed. It didn't really become an entity until Sunday night that weekend, to where it's coming in the Gulf, and here we go.
Really, I'd weathered the last Category 3 storm that we'd had hit in that house, and I figured it was solid brick. We had hurricane shutters, we had hurricane ties on the roof. we should be good.
We had friends come visit from Virginia. We were actually out on a boat the day that we found out it was coming. Monday that we found out, so I mean, we weren't thinking about a hurricane.
And then I woke up in the morning, like 5 o'clock, whenever to get ready for work, and they said it was a 4, could be a 5, and I was like, oh my God. So I was like shaking, grabbing random stupid stuff I wasn't even thinking in my hotel room, threw it in a bag, and shot home at that point, because I was like, Category 5 will change your life, you know what I mean? I already know for sure, you know what I mean? Especially if you're a kid or you're young, it changes your life. You know?
We were more concerned with her health issues, quite frankly, than we were about the storm. When we started hearing about the storm, though, she had just had her 3rd surgery about 11 days prior to the storm making landfall.
So the military, the commander basically said, you have to leave.
Doing life as normal. You know, we've gotten storms, but never really anything bad. So, I mean, we got a couple cases of water and thought, all right, we're good to go.
Oh yeah, never have I left for a hurricane at all. No,
Even more
stayed through Opal, everything.
I never want to evacuate. It's a pain, you know. I don't want to go anywhere.
But honestly, knowing what to do was the hardest thing, you know. Mandatory evacuation order came through. We had so much indecision, you know, leaving. We packed up our cat and, you know, essentials, things that we thought were, you know, we were going to be gone for a couple days.
Well, this sounds kind of silly, but I was kind of excited about it.
I remember Chris Smith hit the nail on the head about a day before when he pointed out that this would be the biggest hurricane that has ever hit Northwest Florida.
We knew something was going on, maybe a woman's intuition, maybe mom's intuition, maybe just all the experience I've had over the years with all the hurricanes. But I mean, nothing will really prepare you for what we went through, ever. I don't care what anybody says, but hindsight is always 20/20. So the whole experience of it, okay, so we're going through the motions, we're, you know, prepared, you know, preparing ourselves as we're going through everything, but I don't think we're fully realizing everything. We're not fully taking in everything like we should because we're just in the motions of it all. So we're going to the store to get things and we see people, some people are frantic. Some people like us are like, dude, chill, it's okay. Like, you get some things too, whatever, and just kind of make your way through the crazy people that are about to have a meltdown and nothing's happened yet.
They actually came to my job and I couldn't even go back home because they were evacuating Bluntstown into the shelter. So
Police and fire all split up town and we started knocking doors. And you know, we did the thing, okay, who's your next of kin? Who should we notify if something happens to you? And here's a Sharpie, please write your social security number on your arm. So we knocked.
To convince people at that point that maybe they should go.
And we had 7 pets, so we knew relocating and moving was, or leaving was not an option. Yeah. So we watched the news. We really went to bed comfortable with it because we survived the storms. Yep. It really wasn't apparent how deadly it was until it was too late to leave.
I look over and I can see daylight, darkness, and I realize that the edge of the roof is lifting up and thudding.
When all the windows and doors were gone, just come in. I mean, and it was like you're living in the midst of a horrible nightmare you can't get out of, and you don't know which way to turn. But my husband said he saw me on the ground trying to grab my son's college application stuff. I don't remember that.
We actually took turns standing on a stool looking at the top 14 inches and watching our neighborhood be destroyed. That was a very sobering thing.
I see that pole break and it's coming from my house. And I'm so afraid because everything I love is in that house and I don't know where it's going to hit.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God, a huge, huge pine tree caught it.
He's got his football helmet on, squeezing one of the dogs to death, saying, please, devil, go away. Oh. Yeah. Because he's never been through a bad storm. Yeah. This was his first hurricane. He was 12 at the time.
Yeah. And the fire alarm's going off. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I smell smoke. I thought it was all psychosomatic from the fire alarms.
When the porch ripped off, it took
part of the roof with it.
Then the roof started peeling back.
So then you're looking up at the sky and the hurricane's in the house.
Her mother got hit by sheetrock in the head.
We're
and
trying
she
to
was
like clean up
bleeding.
stuff.
It was pretty intense for a while.
You know, we live by the Air Force Base, so we hear jets all the time. And I swear from noon on, I was like, why are there jets flying? And I didn't realize that was actually the sound of the storm. It sounded like a jet when it's going overhead.
And the ceiling just fell on my head because the roof was gone, the ceilings, so there's no like filling water, you know, the whole thing about filling the bathtub up with water.
Yeah.
That didn't work. There were spices flying from the kitchen into the bathroom.
Our sheriff made the determination that after 50-mile-per-hour winds, sustained winds, we would not be able to respond. It wouldn't be safe for even the lower profile Crown Vics to go out in that kind of winds. And we did make an attempt even after that to rescue someone that had multiple trees on their trailer. And unfortunately, we weren't ever able to get there until after the storm. Sometimes when you're in the middle of the worst day of your life or the worst month of your life, we can't come out and help. But at the end of the day, you know, they wouldn't have made it anyways. There were so many trees down, and it's just putting another life in danger.
I was at Litman when the bad storm came.
And what room were you in, hiding?
I don't know.
The bathroom?
Yeah.
It was scary. When I saw that he was scared, then I was really scared.
Yeah, I thought we'd gotten ourselves in a lot of trouble. I can tell you that.
It's a hospital. It's fine. I sat on top of the desk and it literally swayed back and forth, side to side, really, side to side. And I immediately went into survivor mode. It's either fight or flight.
They want to video record it.
Yep.
They want to take their selfies and do their Instagrams. So a lot of our soldiers, the younger ones, had the cameras out and they're videoing the ceiling pulling down, like peeling off, the rain coming in.
And we stayed in that room until it was over. And then it was like the most beautiful calm. You walk out and there's devastation everywhere and you're praying your neighbors are okay. You're thanking God that you're okay and your family's okay. Then you sense a little bit of a guilt about it because you don't know if your loved ones that are in the area are okay. You don't know if your elderly neighbor that's next door that's a widow is okay. You don't know if anyone's okay because it's like a quiet, an eerie quiet.
Because being out there, there was one way in, one way out. So if we didn't clear it, we didn't know how long it would take for any kind of emergency crews to come in.
Our neighborhood came together fabulously, and everybody pitched in to help everybody else. So we tarped our roofs, and we gave people food and water. We shared indiscriminately. Anybody that needed something, if we had it, we shared it. But we did not know about the hidden dangers of Hurricane Michael. But she was getting a bacterial infection from the impure water. But look for other ways you can be impacted by the storm like that. We knew that there was a chance we may lose shingles off our roof. Yeah. We knew there was a chance we may have some damage to our home or some trees blown over. We never thought for a moment that a hurricane could lead to a bacterial infection that could be life-threatening.
And you know, we live on a side street off of Tyndall Parkway, so nobody got to us for days. We cut our own selves out. All the neighbors had guns because we heard of the looting.
And the street's covered with water. Where would water even come from there? And there's all the light poles are down, all the lights are off, there's emergency vehicles everywhere, there's trees everywhere. And then I see the Chick-fil-A and I see the Starbucks, and I'm like, this is this is where I live. I can walk to these places. And it was terrifying. And I was like, how do we fix this? Like, how do you fix this much destruction?
I-10 was closed at that time. You know, I think it was about probably 3 or 4 days before we could even attempt a run. It started to kind of become real when we hit Mariana. Yeah. We pulled our fuel, started seeing the long lines. We saw a lot of what I call the highway heroes, people heading this way, linemen and people with supplies and stuff like that. Then I'm like, okay, we're getting close to ground zero. She goes, we're not going to stay there our way. I'm like, no. She goes, no power. I go, no house. Yeah. It seems kind of silly, but it is really the truth. To me, it was almost like a death in the family, losing a house.
Oh, yeah.
It was our first house that we owned, And we've been there so long. I mean, not valuable at all, not the greatest neighborhood, but it is to me now. I'm nostalgic for it.
There was a lot of destruction for landmarks that had been there always. The Arts and Cultural Center next door to me lost its roof, which was full of local artwork.
So the military did the same thing, when they said, well, here's 10 cases of bottled water.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, 10 cases of bottled water? And he's like, give it away, help people. And I was like, you got it.
I felt like I had been dropped in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a little bitty rock. Yeah. And there was nothing.
We were sitting outside on the front porch, and they said, would y'all like something to eat? And I looked at Darlene, I'm like, well, yes, ma'am.
I'm always hungry.
So they gave us a little bag with a ham and cheese sandwich, a little chip bag, and a cookie. And they told us that their children wanted to help us. I mean, that really touched my heart. I just wanted to cry. And when I ate that sandwich, it was the best ham and cheese I ever tasted in my whole life. Because it had a lot of love in there, from strangers.
And what you don't expect to hear is gunfire in the middle of the night. What you don't get used to hearing is generators running constantly, all night long. And the chainsaws, at 7 a.m. they're up cutting. And without AC and without water, just what's going to happen? Where are you going to get a meal? Where are you going to eat? Travel was really spotty. Being able to leave town was very spotty. And so for me, it was, let's get up and survive today. And I go across the bridge at Inlet Beach on Highway 98 heading into Walton County, and there's cars everywhere off the road. And I was going, what? Nothing really clicked in my mind. And then all of a sudden my phone lit up again. And apparently once you got into Walton County, the cell service was awesome. And so people were pulling off the road to use their cell phones. Life there, we were over toward Destin, and life there was just going on. It was still, a beautiful mid-October day in Walton County, no problems here. And then you drive back and you get over the Hathaway Bridge and you go, oh my gosh, it's an amazing, that stretch of road between Panama City Beach into Walton County, where you go from utter devastation toward the Hathaway Bridge to the Emerald City of Wizard of Oz over at South Walton. That was a real eye-opener, because you think everybody's going through it. You just think that because you are and your friends are, that everybody is. And the fact is that, it's just you. It's just you and your friends and your family and your coworkers and your community.
You never understand what those people are going through until you go through it yourself.
Oh, wow.
I have a totally different experience. I have a totally different understanding for what those people went through now.
Yeah.
Now I understand how they were feeling and why they were getting so upset with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army and everybody else. People were always upset because they weren't getting the help. They weren't getting the help. And you are like, they're trying.
Yeah.
They're trying to get it there. They're trying to get it there. They're trying to get it there. As somebody that's now gone through it, you sit back and go, well, shit. They really aren't trying to help, is what you're feeling.
And they knocked on the door, and I opened it, and they said, this building isn't safe. You have to evacuate right now. And he said, you have 5 minutes to pack, and you can't take a suitcase. Just take like a backpack size or a small bag you can carry. That's what they told us. We had 5 minutes. So, of course, you're scrambling. You're thinking, I need my medicine, I need my papers, I need my insurance, and something to wear, maybe.
So
Because Highway 20 is a main road, and you got 231. So seeing them literally pass right by and thinking they're passing right by us and we need help too.
Yeah.
And I don't think it took them like a week before we ever really got help. These small towns gathered together right after the storm.
We helped one another.
Someone got news to one of our soldiers in the gymnasium that there was a pregnant woman with a broke foot trapped in her house. And that was just like 3.5 miles away. So we didn't have any communication with our command. We were separated. So we had platoon level leadership, maybe even like a captain there, so squadron. So leadership designed for about 100, 150 people, but we were separated from our main command. So we decided to go out and get her. And that was just as the last part of the wall was leaving, so there were still gusts of 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And we headed out in an ambulance, me, my platoon sergeant, and then 2 other guys for self-recovery followed us and went out to pick her up. So it was about 3.5 miles away. It took us just shy of 3 hours to get there. Yeah, we were driving over power line poles, over trees, over brushes, through ditches. And at one point we pushed over a fence. We drove through a gentleman's yard. He was actually sitting out on his porch drinking a beer, and he just didn't even skip a beat, just watched us drive through his yard.
Rolled in and it hit me. I was like, these task force, they have been through Louisiana, had been through Katrina, and South Florida had been through millions of hurricanes, but specifically most recently Irma and Maria. So these people knew and understood what we were going through and what would happen next. And I just started to cry because from their pain and their experience, they had come to help us move forward. And people who say, oh, I've lost everything. You have a car full and a storage unit full of stuff. I'm sorry. You don't know what losing everything is until you're the one coming back to your empty lot and finding only a pocket knife and an earring.
I know that Bay County did what they had to do to make sure those lives were safe. The EMTs that I know of, don't personally know, but know of, they worked, I don't know how many days straight with no day off, devoted to making sure that people were safe.
We were cutting trees and the tree fell and it fell on my dad. And he was in intensive care for 5 weeks, and it pretty much had crushed the whole left side, and ultimately he was declared brain dead. And they said there was like 3 funguses off of the tree that hit him that had injured his brain.
The first time, I know maybe we can get to that, but I understand why they retire storms now, the name.
Like, and we figured out, like, when the dust settled, who was staying, and we've started doing play dates again, and we've started, you know, stuff's been reopening slowly and slowly and slowly. And
the housing market is horrible, and they're not paying enough. You're triple the housing market, but the job's paying $10, $12, $15 an hour, but it's $2,000 for rent. They don't have the surgery center, so they closed now. My kid's pediatrician just up and quit, and is no longer practicing. So we've had to just I just got a letter saying, hey, he's no longer practicing. The depression that hits you from this, it's real.
We've had an equalizer where we are all the same, not a rich man, a poor man, a young man and an old man, not a black man and a white man, we're the same.
The thought of another one hitting us, terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. I'm even afraid of a thunderstorm anymore. I've never been afraid of thunderstorms, but I am now. You'll never get over it. What we saw during this storm, after this storm, it's embedded in your mind, in your brain.
I know I'm going through some form of PTSD because my temper's like real short sometimes, and if I'll lose something and I just go like nuts, like, oh my gosh, where is it?
Yes, the mold, and we have every kind of mold you can comprehend in here right now, and it makes us sick.
Yeah.
We keep sinus infections.
Tore apart the word responsibility a lot since the storm, and it's your ability to respond. I have a different definition of it in my head now. It's not like, oh, it's my responsibility to go do this work. No, it's your ability to respond to these situations that you are put in. That's your responsibility.
But then the second stage begins when you have to deal with your insurance. The car. Here we have no vehicle, we have no home, and for the first time in our adult lives, we have nothing.
You know, there's a lot of places that were destroyed that's no longer here. Some people are able to rebuild, some people aren't.
I guess this is our new reality. Before the storm, there were trees everywhere and plenty of shade for everything, and it wasn't so dry.
They get upset when they see a home that gets demolished. I try to explain it. It's a good thing because that means that, you know, a new home can go there. But I mean, they have students in their classrooms that are still homeless. They see it every day and they feel it a lot.
As far as the schools are concerned, we lost 3,000 children and their families left the area. So in that case, that trickles down. So
Yes.
teachers lose their jobs, we lose funding, and so many schools got damaged. We had to consolidate schools. We're still dealing with 4,000 to 5,000 children that are labeled as homeless.
And it won't ever look the same. Yeah. You know, it'll never be the way that it was before. But I can think of all kinds of things that aren't the way they were before. In my life, personally, they're better. Yeah. There was a time when I didn't have kids. Yeah. Having kids was better. There's a lot of things that I went through, illness, whatever. Yeah. You know, you can go on and on forever. And just because it's not the same doesn't mean it's worse.
I mean, and not to make this religious, but, you know, the Lord said, I will not leave you, will not forsake you. Okay, you know, we can do this. Yes. We can bring Panama City back.
Now we're even more a part of the community than ever because now we've built it from the ground up. Yeah. You know, we were here through this whole terrible ordeal. We've all been in it together and we're all storm tested. You know, our friendships and our relationships in our community has been tested by one of the worst trials imaginable, and we're still here and we're still strong.
It's almost like a whole renaissance. It was on the cusp of being something very cool and very hip, and now it's turning into something that's just wonderful.
And it's kind of a common thread we can see through people that maybe the blessings that we can see have come through the destruction. The good that has come to each individual through surviving this disaster in our life. And when you get right down to it, we are our brother's keeper.
After the hurricane, it tore down my trees and you know, plants that I had around my house. And since the hurricane, I have planted so many different varieties of plants along the house and along the fence, and you know, bringing it back up to the tropical paradise that I had prior to the storm. But it's so much better now because that's what it is. There's new life in the yard that was never there.
But I can say that Bluntstown has made it home. They have opened their arms up and given back a lot of that we needed. And you know, it's still a long road of recovery, but I know that if we come together, we can make it.
Because we're going to build better and stronger, and the people out there is just amazing. Yeah. They're amazing.
We met a lot of amazing people.
And strangers that would come from Alabama or anywhere, other states, to offer you food, go out of their way to come here. I mean, it's just amazing. All the power companies, anybody that does any kind of construction that are still here, you know. The roofers, I feel so bad for those roofers in this heat, but it's the human spirit coming together as one.
Just don't give up.
I hope it comes back and it comes back better. Yeah. I think we can build through this.
I think the most important thing to remember, and it was hard for me to remember, is this too shall pass.
I think we've still gained our sense of humor. We've still held our heads up. I mean, this is the South. You can't keep us down.
I mean, it is a lot, but we all learned a lot from it too, so I don't think I would change anything, but.
I'm proud to be from here. I think that this has really shown that we have there's a lot of bad that's happened, but we have a lot of good people here and people that are willing to help in any way possible. I think that it brought some people closer together. There may have been neighbors that you never really talked to before, but you know, with this storm, it was just kind of like everybody was talking to each other. Everyone was doing whatever they could do to help the next person. So
it was amazing to see people who used to hate each other just hug each other, just being so glad to see you're alive.
The 2 weeks following the storm were the best 2 weeks since the storm.
that immediate hero thing. And we survived it. Like, we're stronger because of it. Like, I don't think anything negative about it. You know what I mean? Like, to us, it's, I don't know, it's not a bad.
It was a storm that changed things.
Yeah.
There's a saying I read in the dentist office or doctor's office.
I was going to mention
It's called "There's no such thing as bad weather, different types of good weather." And I asked my dad that. It was around that time with Camille and all. He goes, that means there's always something good that comes out of a bad situation, like a hurricane.
We're 850 strong. So there's nothing we can't do.
Keep your head down. Keep doing your job. If you look at it too big of a picture, it's overwhelming. If you realize that large disasters like this is just a bunch of little steps and a bunch of little fixes that eventually fix the whole thing, it's a little bit more done. So just focus on what you can get done in a day, 2 days, 3 days, and just keep doing that over and over again. It's the best way I can explain it.
So she painted a picture of her interpretation of the storm, and she got up to say she was giving this to them. But she said, you know what? I am over Michael. I refuse to let Michael have anything to do with my life anymore, beyond the fact that I still have work to do. But she says, Michael doesn't own me. Michael doesn't define me. Michael is history, and we are now.
In the middle of that storm, where the word neighbor, the word neighbor was defined.